In this video, we're going to talk about essay structure, paragraph structure, and outlines. And as the picture shows, an example of buildings which are, of course, very well structured constructions. We'll start by looking at the structure of your essay. And as you've seen in the first video on academic research, you see that the structure of your essay depends on the type of research you're conducting. So if you're doing experimental research, which was the research we did in the previous video, which was something with a method and results and discussion, it consists of these parts we discussed. So we have our introduction, we have our background, we have our method, our results, our discussion, and our conclusion. Now what we're going to do is we're going to write an argumentative essay, which means that we're going to give arguments for particular things. And argumentative essays don't really have this background, method, results, and discussion thing because they don't really have something to either give the results of or give the method of. So what we see in an argumentative essay is basically a structure that consists of an introduction, of the arguments, and the conclusion. So that's very easy. Now if we look at this research in a bit more detail, we see that we have our introduction, which has a thesis statement that is a summary of your essay in one sentence. And this thesis statement includes the research questions. And the thesis statement is something that's quite difficult because it is rather difficult to put your entire work into one statement or one sentence. And we'll look at the example of the thesis statement from the Facebook article in a second. Now, if we look at the paragraphs, we see we have our argument, which is the same as the topic sentence or level 1 sentence. We have level 2 and 3 sentences, and we have another set of level 2 and 3 sentences. And then we get our second argument, which only consists of one collection of level 1, 2, 3 sentences. And you can see you can have more than one collection of level 2 and 3 sentences, right? You don't really need to stick to one level 2 and 3 sentence per paragraph. Otherwise, you might have very short and very superficial paragraphs. You get your conclusion, which is basically a summary of the topic sentences, and that's kind of true. I put it in there to explain what it is, but it's a bit more than that as well. But we'll look at that near the end of this module. Now, basically, what you should be able to do is you should find your topic sentences in your thesis statement. Not literally, but you should be able to pinpoint in your work where the several parts of your thesis statement can be found. So if you have your topic sentences and they're very well written, and you have a good thesis statement, you should be able to link them directly to each other. So if we look at the example of the Facebook article, we see that this is the thesis statement, right? It always or usually starts with something like the aim of the present study. Right, so it gives the aim, it gives what you're aiming for. So it might be a sentence like, this article aims to, or this study aims to, or the aim of this study, or the aim of the article, something in that manner. And you should try to do that as well when you write your thesis statement, but we'll also spend some time on thesis statements later on. Now, are we able to find these things in this article? Well, yes, because they presented us with a prospective analysis of Facebook use and body image concern in adolescent girls. And they looked at whether the proposed cause, in this case Facebook use, is temporarily antecedent, which means occurs before the proposed effect, body image concern. So these are things we found in our article. Right, so this is basically everything the article is about. And we didn't find things that were not mentioned in this thesis statement. Of course, they talked about things that are not really in this thesis statement. But what I'm talking about is that the main parts of your work can always be traced back to this thesis statement. And that's also something to think about when you work on your own work and your own thesis statement. Now let's have a look at this paragraph thing again. So a good paragraph follows a good structure, and we can define this in levels, right? So we have level 1, which is our topic sentence, and that's basically your argument. What are you going to say in this paragraph? Then we have level 2, which is an explanation of your argument. What do you mean actually? What you're talking about? And level 3 is supporting evidence or examples. And sometimes you might have a level 4, which is also some extra information, as long as everything is still related to your argument, right? You should be able to find everything and relate everything to this topic sentence. Because what we don't want is that you have loose ideas. And I will talk about loose ideas in a second. Because loose ideas don't help the structure of your essay or the structure of your work or of your paragraph. We really need you to think about what am I going to say where, and that you have these levels, because then you get a well-structured work, and that's of course good. So let's have a look at some examples. Here we have a paragraph I made up. It says, although the students indicated they liked talking about language, they felt the class was useless and without any meaning. Right, so we have a nice linking word, although, which means that something which was before this talked about liking talking about language. We get our level 1 sentence, which I will indicate in yellow. They felt the class was useless and without any meaning. Now you could do two things. You could talk about the class was useless and the class was without any meaning. But I didn't choose to do this. I chose to focus on these two things in a more general sense, right? Now then we have our level 2 sentence, which I will do in blue. They indicated that they spend too much time thinking about uninteresting topics and too little time on topics that helped them understand anything. They did not understand why they had to come up with topics. They would rather have the teacher do this. So this entire part is our level 2, right? It explains more about the class being useless and without any meaning. Now you could say it's not very well written because, it might not really relate to it, but I think it is, of course. And then we get our level 3, which is an example, right? I really put something in there that is from, it's quoted from an answer of a student. As one student indicated in their answer, I feel like this teacher is having us do stuff under some new way of teaching umbrella, just so that he doesn't have to do anything. Right, that's your example. And is it true? Is it the same? Let's not do this in red because that's a bit negative. We don't want that. Let's do green. That's good for the environment. As one of the students indicated in their answers, I feel like this teacher is having us do stuff under some new way of teaching, so he doesn't have to do anything. Now, it might not be the best example, but, it illustrates what I'm trying to say. So we have our level 1. They felt the class was useless and without any meaning. We have a level 2, which explains a bit what this is. And we have a level 3, which is an example on which I based both the explanation and this topic sentence. And you see that's a nice, well-structured paragraph. We have our linking words. We have although and as. And I think that's good. That's a good paragraph. Right, so here's another example of our Facebook article. Let's read it quickly. While the findings do not speak to precise underlying mechanisms, only number of Facebook friends, not time spent, prospectively predicted and was itself predicted by any body image concern. This is a very good topic sentence, right? It starts by some sort of introductory phrase, while the findings do not speak to precise underlying mechanisms, only number of Facebook friends, not time spent, prospectively predicted and was itself predicted by any body image concern. Then it gives some explanation, or it interprets what they're saying and says it may be that number of Facebook friends is simply a better measure of engagement with Facebook than time. That's one explanation. Then it uses the linking word alternatively to say an increased number of Facebook friends may provide girls with greater opportunity to rapidly make multiple social comparisons, itself shown to be associated with body image concern. Right, so it gives a second reasoning in this part and then links it to something they already know, itself shown to be associated with body image concern, right? Then we have another linking word, further, which means that they're going to talk about this more. These comparisons are likely to be with somewhat idealized images, in that girls mostly post photographs in which they look good or are doing something cool, and can be digitally altered. In addition, given the large number of Facebook friends held by the girls, these must include many people personally not known to the Facebook users, distant peers or celebrities. Right, another good linking word, and another explanation. So you see that we have 4 parts of this in this paragraph, right? We have our topic sentence, and then they comment on what they said, that the number of Facebook friends and not time spent prospectively predicted and was itself predicted by any body image concern. And they explain this using these 3 things you can find. So if you think about loose ideas, there's nothing in this paragraph that is not related to this part, right? There's nothing that we can't pinpoint back towards this topic sentence. If we look at another example, this one is on a study by linguistic accommodation. Now, this is a difficult concept, and I know that it's not something you're familiar with, but I really want to show the level 1, 2, 3, which we can recognize in this very well structured paragraph. So let's start by looking at the topic sentence. A number of studies have examined short-term linguistic accommodation in the speech of individuals in multiple interactions. So this is a very good topic sentence. So what it means, what linguistic accommodation means, is that you adjust your language to the person you're speaking to, right? That's accommodation. So now we have an example. Copeland, for example, analyzed the speech of an assistant in a Cardiff travel agency and found that her use of localized forms varied in line with whether she was talking to colleagues or to clients. Right? A very good example. That's a clear example of accommodation. Other examples of multiple interaction studies are, for instance, Bell's investigation of accommodation effects in conversations between male and female New Zealanders whose ethnicity was either Maori or Pākehā of European descent, and Rickford and McNairnock's investigation of the speech of an African American teenager. Rickford and McNairnock examined the teen's interactions with both familiar African American female interviewer and an unfamiliar European American female interviewer, revealing that the morphosyntactic variables under scrutiny, the interview used a greater number of standard forms with the European American than with the African American interviewer. So these are, of course, very long and very complex sentences, and the language is difficult, right? If you don't know what they're talking about, it makes no sense. What you are able to find is this structure. Okay, so we have an example here, we have another example here, which is indicated by another example. And let's see, and it ends somewhere over here. And then this one as well, which is also a good example. And you could even find a bit of structure in this, right? We have the introduction to the example. So that's this part. And we have another intersection to the next example, this one's. And they build on this in the next section, this entire area. Right, so this shows that even though it's very difficult, you don't know what accommodation is, you don't know what they mean by all these things, you can still find the structure in this paragraph, and that's what I'm trying to show you. Okay? Now, one way to achieve this is by using what we call an outline. And last year when you were writing your review, I really focused on make sure you start by writing your outline, because having an outline helps with capturing and having a good structure. Now, if you look at the rubric, it says something like this. And let's look at the 9s and 10s in this area. Your paragraph contains excellent level 1, 2, 3 sentences with excellent use of linking words to achieve flow. Your topic sentences are excellent and cover the entire paragraphs. right? So you have good topic sentences, you have excellent level 1, 2, 3, you have good linking words, and you might even play around, right? So you might have a 1, 2, 1 or 1, 2, another 1, 2, 1. You might have 1, 2, 3. You could have 1, 3, 2. You could have 1, 2, 3, 4. So you might have variations on 1, 2, 3, which is good, of course, as long as you have good linking words and you don't have loose ideas, because that's what we don't want. We don't want your paragraphs to have loose ideas, because having loose ideas is not a good thing, right? So if we look at, for example, the previous example, we see, well, this is all about language and accommodation. Imagine having a sentence, and she didn't like her. Right? That makes no sense. It has nothing to do with accommodation in speech, right? Or if you look at the example from the Facebook article, it might have something like, and they didn't like her aunt or something, right? Or it might be related to what they think of people. Those things are not related to your topic sentence, and you want to avoid having these loose ideas. So, and if you look at the insufficient part, we see your paragraphs do not contain structure whatsoever, and it is a collection of loose ideas, and we don't want that, obviously. So let's have a look at some examples of outlines. So it might be something like this. It might be something like this, or something like this, or this. Let me erase this. Or this, right? So there are many ways to writing a good outline. And next week, we'll focus on outlines as well. And you see that it's very, very structured. That's what we're trying to achieve, right? This one even has topic sentence, expand, details, evidence, analysis. So this is level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Now, we're not going to do level 4 because we don't find it very interesting at this part, but level 1, 2, 3 is basically the basic structure. And you see that in every paragraph, right? Level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Right? Nothing very special, very basic. Now, why would you use an outline? Well, basically because we want your arguments to be in line with your thesis statement, which is something I said at the beginning, right? Let's have a look at an example of something I made up. So here's the thesis statement. The aim of this paper is to argue that more exposure to a language leads to higher test scores, and that students of which teachers only speak the target language get higher test scores. Now, this is something that has been researched for many, many times, so I'm not going to dive deeper into the research part. And this is, of course, absolutely true, right? There's nothing, there's nothing that doesn't say this isn't true. How do I put this into an article, right? Well, let's start with the first paragraph. Our first paragraph says, more exposure leads to higher test scores, right? Can we see that? Yes, because this part of the thesis statement is found in the first paragraph. My level 2 sentences could be something like, you recognize certain patterns, and I might have examples from research to back up my findings. Level 3, level 2, and level 1. Same goes for my second paragraph. Students of which teachers only speak the target language get higher test scores. Okay, why do I say this? What's my explanation? You are exposed to repetitive chunks of language. Take out your book. That's something teachers always say, right? And then you're exposed to these chunks like take out and your book, or book as a word on its own. So I might point to your book and say, take out your book. And again, I might have a level 3 sentence or level 3 sentences that support my findings with evidence from research, right? So we have level 1, which is our thesis, our topic sentence, which can be linked to the thesis statement, right? And here as well, can link it to the thesis statement. We have our explanations, and these explanations are still related to what we said, right? And level 3 support this. They give us research and evidence to support this. Now let's look at another example. Remember in the last video I talked about my research on the influence of Instagram on clothing style, right? Let's say we want to write 2 paragraphs. We'll start with the introduction. I'm not going to write the entire introduction because I always do introductions and conclusions at the end, but importance is to write down my thesis statement, which is the aim of this study is to analyze the extent to which Instagram influences the clothing style of Dutch secondary school students. This is something I discussed in the previous video as well, right? So you can see the research question I proposed in the previous video. You can see this in the thesis statement. Let's say that what we're now going to do is write a paragraph in the background section. We didn't talk about background section yet, so we can do that now. Let's say that I want to say that teens are very influential during puberty. That's what I'm saying. That's my starting point of my research. Because this is something that's general knowledge. So we can assume that this is something we can agree on. So my topic sentence in this paragraph, look at the difference, right? I didn't say topic sentence here. I said topic sentence here. Right, so I didn't say, I started by writing down my argument. What am I going to say? Then I wrote down my topic sentence. They are the same, I know, and that's fine. But I made a difference. Okay? My level 1 sentence, teens are very influential during puberty. Okay, fine. My level 1 and my level 2, let me explain this a bit in this paragraph. Since adolescence is important for the development of several cognitive areas of the brain that deal with social relationships, teens and young adults are prone to peer and social influences. And prone to means that you're influenced in a negative way. Level 3, there is some research I did yesterday. I found this on the internet. This is largely due to the fact that some brain systems are implicated in a mechanism which underlies the increased desire to earn the approval of peers. Right, so it's because you guys are very influential, very influenced by the way your classmates look at you and what you think of each other. That's why you are influential. Right, that's why you are influenced by what other people say and think of you. So do you see this level 1, 2, 3 structure? And I didn't do something very basic, right? This is a good sentence on its. This is a good paragraph on its own already because I have since, right? I have a linking word that refers to something else, but it's still important for what I'm saying. And we have this, and this refers to this part, right? This element in this sentence. So this is a very basic level 1, 2, 3 structure in my own research, right? The thing we just discussed in the previous video. Now, next week, I'm going to create an outline for this entire research, and I'm going to focus on the background section because that's the most interesting part, or maybe the discussion. But do you see this structure 1, 2, 3? Do you see how you can write this on your own in your own outline? That's important. Right. Now we need to practice this.